Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to look at the Noir Toyz. The Great Detective is back. This is basically a Gotham by Gaslight Batman, 1/12 scale, Mezco style, and it's a third-party, unauthorized, unlicensed action figure. Whenever I get these third-party, unlicensed Mezco style figures, I'm always curious about a couple things. I compare them to Mezco toys. Are they as good quality? Are they at least close to as good quality? Or are they far inferior? And then the scale. Mezco typically runs about 6.5 inches tall. That's a scale I like, although I prefer the 7-inch scale. But some of these third-party figures are true 1/12 scale, which is 6.0 inches, to fit in with Japanese toys. And that displeases me, as that's very small, a lot smaller than any other Batman figures I have. But we'll find that out in a few minutes. Right now, let's check out the packaging. As you can see, it's the Gotham by Gaslight Batman in the old school outfit, goggles. The Great Detective is back, 1/12 scale collectible action figure. Noir Toyz, 1/12 scale figure. noirtoyz@gmail.com. You can barely see Batman on the front, and nothing on the package says Batman or DC Comics because they're not allowed to. One side, the Great Detective is back. Other side, same thing. On the back, we have a little warning, a little description, not about the figure, just about the company. And at the bottom, there's nothing going on. So with no further ado, let's open it up. Alright, now that we have this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He comes with quite a bit of cool stuff. We have a display base, as well as a flight stand post that will attach. He also has a gargoyle to attach to the base. He's got an extra piece of his cape, a total of 3 heads, 8 alternate hands, totaling 10 interchangeable hands, 4 batarangs, 4 knives, and his grapnel launcher. And don't forget, he also has this cool background sort of display piece. Now before we look at all the accessories, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is the Great Detective is Back by Noir Toyz. It's essentially a Gotham by Gaslight Batman, which is an Elseworld story by DC where Batman takes place in Old England and he's fighting Jack the Ripper among some of his various rogues. Now this figure is done in 1/12 scale, cloth soft goods, kind of Mezco style, and unfortunately, he's very small, much smaller than I like. Still, the figure looks pretty cool. There's a lot of cool stuff going on here, so let's take a look. Starting with his head here, this is the goggles head. Long ears, look great. Stern face, kind of a frowning expression. Sculpt is excellent on his face, his head, etc. As we go further down, it's got the cloth outfit, bat symbol here, all these sort of buttons holding the tunic together. Looks like double jointed elbows, they go in pretty far. Utility belt here, it's going to hold all those knives. Probably the grapnel launcher too. It all looks very nice. The outfit itself, not bad. A stretch material. Seems very similar to this material that Mezco uses for their figures. Looks like double jointed knees. Almost knee-high boots. Cape. Looks like it has a wire in it. Bendable. It looks pretty good. Frayed at the bottom, just like Batman. Overall, not a bad figure, just considerably smaller than I would have liked. One kind of interesting thing I noticed about this figure is the bottom of his feet have a bunch of yellow on them. Doesn't really make sense to me how that happened, but it's definitely there. And just a closer look at his face and head sculpt. I love the long ears. And here's the figure broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. Now let's take a look at his accessories, and let's start off with the display stand. Now let's check out the display stand. It comes with 3 separate pieces. First of all, we have the post for a flight stand. Then we have the base here. It looks like it's on some sort of stone, kind of cracked. It's got the bat symbol there. At the bottom, it's got sort of a velvety type finish. That way if you slide across wood or glass, it's not going to scratch it up. And then it has this gargoyle that you can put on top of the display stand or elsewhere. It's small, but looks fantastic. When you connect the flight stand post to the base, it's going to look like this. It's got some rotation at the bottom, although it's very tight. Hinged at the bottom, hinged in the middle, hinged near the top. Rotation here. And it has this clamp for your figure. It has a top part here. You can flip this down if you want to support your figure instead. You can put this gargoyle right on top of the display stand. It looks great. The fingers curl right over the edge there. But me personally, I'm probably going to have this gargoyle separately incorporated into my action figure world, because top of a building like this just doesn't really make a lot of sense with the bat symbol there. It should be noted there are no peg holes for his feet. I don't think his feet have any holes in them. So the whole thing is supposed to use the flight stand piece here. I love that gargoyle. Now let's check out this background piece. It's sort of a look at some building tops in Old England. You can even see Big Ben in the background here. Of course, it's got the bat symbol on the top, made of a bunch of different flying bats. Pretty cool. You can see the bats flying all around the rooftops of Old England. It's a pretty nice piece, just made of simple cardboard here, but it should be nice for some photography. Now let's check out his hands. He has a total of 10 of them, 5 right hands and 5 left hands. Here he is with his first pair of hands. These are his fists. Then, with his second pair of hands, this is a pair of traditional gripping hands. And here's his third pair of hands. This is a pair of pointing hands. I would say they're gripping hands with a trigger finger, but that's the next pair of hands. And here's his fourth pair of hands. This is a pair of gripping hands with a trigger finger, presumably for his grapnel launcher. And here's his final pair of hands. This is a pair of open hands. They would look good relaxed at his sides, or maybe just after he threw something. He came with a couple extra pair of wrist pegs. Now these things are constantly coming out of his wrists when you're changing the hands. They'll either stay on the wrists or come out with the hands. Not really that big a deal. Once you get them set up, it's fine. But then as you're switching out the hands, not only the wrist pegs come out, his gauntlets and fins come off fairly easily. His head will fall off. Just kind of frustrating handling this guy. But once you get it all put together, it stays together okay. Now let's look at his heads. He has a total of 3 of them. One regular masked head, one with goggles on, and one unmasked Bruce Wayne head. Here's his first head. This one had the standard Batman cowl. I really like the sort of stitching around the head, making it seem like it's a homemade costume. And here's the second head. This is the one with the goggles on. And here's his third head. This is the unmasked Bruce Wayne head. Actually looks pretty good. His next piece is going to be to attach to his outfit. It goes around his shoulder. I don't know if shawl is exactly the right word. It's going to drape around his shoulders. It's got sort of chain around his neckline. Here's Batman without the shawl or neck piece. And here he is with the shawl on. Doesn't quite fit as snug around him as I'd like. Looks a little off. Now let's look at his knives. They're small. He has 4 of them. They're all the same. You can see the blade there. Pretty basic. Then of course we have the handle. Here's this Noir Toyz Batman holding those knives. And here he is, holstering all 4 of those knives. Now let's look at his grapnel launcher. Old school style. You can see this is from the 1800s. The actual hook can come out. Here's Batman holding and getting ready to use his grapnel launcher. And I thought this back part of his belt was for the grapnel launcher, but it seems far too big to holster here. Must be for the batarang. Now for his batarangs. He has 4 of them. They look pretty good. Got silver tips, made of kind of a hard plastic. Of course, they have the Batman symbol. Here's Batman holding and getting ready to throw his batarang. I swear I can just not make Batman look good in action poses with that shawl no matter what I do. And here, holstering one of those batarangs. Now speaking of accessories, I have this Mezco Victorian Vigilante accessory pack that I got a few months ago, just waiting for the Mezco Gotham by Gaslight Batman. And I told myself, if I like this Noir Toyz Batman, I'm going to open this accessory set. But I'm sorry, Noir Toyz Batman is not worthy to have this opened. It's going to wait until the Mezco one comes out. In addition to that, I have this accessory vehicle type thing. This is a NECA Assassin's Creed Brotherhood Da Vinci flying machine. I also got this in anticipation of the Mezco Gotham by Gaslight Batman. And I'm also not willing to open this until he comes out. Noir Toyz is simply not worthy. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, now let's check out his height. And he's a lot smaller than I would have liked. From bottom to the top of his head, he's staying at about 6.1 inches tall, which can translate to about 15.5 centimeters. If you go to the top of the ears, about 6.4 inches tall. Now for his articulation. Start with his head here. Of course, it can rotate from side to side. You You look up and down about that far, down quite a bit. Can't tilt his head from one side to the other. Shoulders on a ball joint, goes out way more than 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. He clearly has a butterfly joint here. You can see that increased range of motion. Looks kind of bad with the cloth goods of his push all the way in. Looks decent when it's all the way out. Bicep cut. Double jointed elbows. His wrist can rotate, and it's hinged as well. Torso. He's got a ball joint out of there, rotate around, forward and back. He's got another one on his waist, rotate around, forward and back. Legs only go about this far. The pants are obstructing them. They would go out all the way. Forward that much, back not very much. He's got some sort of thigh rotation here. Double jointed knees, then his ankle, forward and back, rotate. Tilt rock, questionable. Don't think you can actually really do that. And to articulation. Here's Batman on a rooftop overlooking the old English version of Gotham. Now let's check him out next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Gotham by Gaslight Batman figures. Here's this Noir Toyz Gotham by Gaslight Batman next to the older DC Direct version. I personally think the DC Direct version looks better. And here he is next to the Mattel DC Multiverse version. I personally think this one looks better. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I just prefer it overall. Better articulation and more my style of action figure. Here are all three versions of the Gotham by Gaslight Batman that I have. Looking forward to the Mezco version upcoming. Should be coming in the near future, the next 1 or 2 months. I've had that thing on pre-order for a couple years now. And actually, looking at his competition here, looks like his collar is supposed to be bent down. He looks a little bit better like this. And here he is, next to the Mezco 112 Collective Gotham by Gaslight Joker. He needs this Batman to go up against. And just look at the scale difference here. This Batman is true 112 scale, pretty much 6.0 inches tall. This Joker is probably about 6.5 inches, a scale I much prefer. This Batman just feels so tiny. Now let's check him out next to some other third-party unlicensed and unauthorized figures. Here he is next to a Fan Super XC Suit Batman from Arkham Origins. And here he is, next to a Mix Max, Deathstroke, and Two-Face. Then, next to an SSR, Night of Vengeance, Thomas Wayne Flashpoint Batman, and Endgame Joker. And here he is, next to a Notice Studios, Ben Affleck, Bruce Wayne, and an Anton Custom, Robert Pattinson, Bruce Wayne. These are both made by the same people and are excellent third-party figures. And here, next to an AC Play, Robert Pattinson, Bruce Wayne, not nearly as good as the other. And here he is, next to a Felix Toys, Joaquin Phoenix Joker. And finally, next to a Joaquin Phoenix Joker and Arthur Fleck from Patriot Studios. Now let's check them out next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. Whenever I get these third-party cloth soft goods figures, I always call them Mezco style figures. Whenever I get them, I always want to compare with Mezco figures, because Mezco is the top notch in 112 scale cloth soft goods figures. And this guy here is definitely inferior to a Mezco product. He's smarter than them, he moves differently, he's thinner, the cloth doesn't fit as good. Don't get me wrong, this Gotham by Gaslight Batman, the head sculpt is fantastic, looks great, but the overall body, I'm generally disappointed with. The accessories are fantastic, the extras, not really fond of the cloth suit, his scale, or his articulation. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective Batman villains. And then, next to even more Mezco figures. Here he is, next to some Soap Studios figures. Soap Studios also does 112 scale cloth soft goods figures, but they're quite inferior to Mezco. This Gotham by Gaslight Batman is about on their level. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a 6-inch scale figure, on the smaller end of what I collect, I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the smaller action figure lines I collect, and work my larger, and I'm going to include as many Batman figures as I can during these comparisons. Here he is, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures, and here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts Batman figures. Here he is, next to one of my wife's Starbucks cups, then next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends, and here, next to some Mafex Batman figures, then next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse Batman figures, and now next to some Jazzwares AEW wrestlers. Then with some Mattel WWE wrestling figures. And here he is, standing with some NECA Batman figures. Then, next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles Batman figures. And here he is, next to some McFarlane DC Multiverse Batman figures. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. And finally, next to some Jakks Pacific wrestling figures. So overall, this is a nice Batman figure. At least he looks pretty good. The face and head sculpt is amazing. Not super fond of how the soft goods sits onto the body. Just something looks a little off about it. I'm also not fond of the articulation. Some of it looks awkward, even through the soft goods clothing. And my other complaints, when swapping out his hands, the wrist peg just keeps coming out. You gotta pull it out of the hand, put it back into the wrist. Meanwhile, while that's happening, his gauntlet's falling off. The sort of cape piece around his neck is coming off. Things sort of falling all apart. You put it all together, it works okay, but a little frustrating to handle. His accessories, they are pretty cool. If I were to rate this figure, I'm probably going to give him a 6 out of 10. His height is something else that I really want to complain about. He's just so damn small. He doesn't fit in with almost anything in my collection. He does look good. And maybe a 6 is too high, I don't know. 5.5, 6 out of 10, that's kind of where my rating's sitting. And it's a lot lower than I was hoping to give this guy. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll talk to you guys real soon.